Let's welcome live onto the programme now academic and independent journalist Jason Michael. Jason, you are, as I say, very welcome to the programme today. You've just written an article about the alleged atrocities in Bucha and conclude there are some unanswered questions about what actually occurred there. What are the main ones?
Well, the main question for me would be a question of chronology. The timeline of events is certainly something that would cause any independent analyst some concern that the Russian forces, as is acknowledged even by the Ukrainian side, were leaving Bucha in the northern Kyiv Oblast by the 30th, which by the 31st, we have the advanced troops of the Ukrainian Forward Guard and the police units going into the city. And as the programme has already said, there is no indication anywhere of a massacre. A number of events that then continue to happen from there would indicate, such as the arrival of the mayor, a number of police squads, the Azov battalion, and then the Safari police security unit preparing for a sweep of the city. And nothing is then reported of a massacre until the evening of the 2nd of April, which leaves a window of 72 hours between the departure of Russian forces and the arrival of the Ukrainians.
So what you're saying is that things just aren't adding up as they should, especially what the Western media are saying. With that in mind, Jason, from what you've seen so far, do you think it's safe to say the press, television, you're in Dublin, in Europe, what perhaps you've seen in the US as well, have made a snap judgment regarding the events in Bucha?
Oh, quite clearly there has been a rush to judgment. I think a fair analysis of this situation would say that there is an urgent need for an investigation, that this has to be forensically analysed, which hasn't happened. The chronology, as we've already discussed, would say that, well, yes, there would be a need for an investigation, and to see the UN Security Council under the chairmanship of Britain refuse that to Russia, I think is quite worrying. It's concerning, to say the least.
The Kiev government at the moment appears to be the only source of information that's getting through there. But we should remember its information in the past has sometimes lacked accuracy, the Snake Island surrender, for example. Why do you think then that people, and I'm talking about formerly sober, thinking journalists, are willing to believe everything that is sent to them from Ukraine?
Oh, well, I would imagine, like most media around the world, it comes with an agenda, that we work within hegemonic systems where this is a war, and the first casualty of every war, not to get too cliched, is the truth. Journalists in this conflict, like most other conflicts, are partisan. The British and American media quite clearly have an agenda to drive, and it's very difficult at the moment to find anything that breaks with the prevailing narrative. Everything that does deviate from the narrative is being shouted down. It's being called Putin apologism. It's being called pro-Russian. It's an incredibly difficult media environment in which to be clear-headed, in which to look at things with, a sober mind.
That's the thing, isn't it? Just because you're skeptical doesn't necessarily mean you're pro-Putin. That message seems to have got lost in the fog of things.
Well, of course. No, I think my own concern here is one for, a great human tragedy. We have a situation here where we have somewhere between 200 and 400 dead civilians. Someone has killed them. I can't tell you who killed them. What I can tell you is that there are serious questions in the timeline. The Ukrainian forces certainly never seen any dead bodies when they arrived into the city. The mayor was unaware of it. The council authorities who announced a coming sweep were unaware of dead bodies. And yet when the Azov battalion enter and do the sweep with the Safari security security team that evening, all of a sudden we have a very visible, very public massacre. So, yeah, that should raise some concerns.
Jason, just finally, something to touch on. The Kiev government has been very active in its use of social media and other sorts of promotion as well. Do you think it's been successful in dominating the information war?
Well, it has had some success, absolutely. And, this is the environment in which we live. But social media, being what it is, has presented a very powerful counter-narrative. We have seen outrageous scenes of civilians in many cities and towns around Ukraine being abused by Ukrainian nationalists, by members of the army. Only today we saw a group of civilians being, viciously assaulted by members of the Ukrainian army. And that information is getting out as well. And I feel that the longer this conflict goes on, the more the viewing public are getting to see that there isn't quite as much of a black and white narrative as there is a very grey narrative to this entire conflict.
Jason, thank you very much for your time today. By the way, where can you find that article you wrote?
Oh, you can find it on standpointzero.com.
OK, well, our viewers will know that now. Jason, thanks for your time today. Jason Michael, academic and independent journalist.